So we're now moving to the voting on the annual report. I'm just looking at the people who are here, of which there are 10. Everybody, including you, Sarah, including you, Aga, including you, Ben, and of course the founding members, has been notified that they are eligible to vote. So we're all voting. So I'd like to put the annual report to the vote. If you are in favour of accepting the annual report, please raise your hand. And if anybody hasn't got their camera on, they're going to have to indicate either in the chat or spokenly that they're voting. Brilliant. Keep your hands up. Alfred, could you please count the votes?
Okay, yeah, that's 7. And is there anyone that's not been counted that's in the room with you?
Did you count?
Okay, that's 8 and
Richard.
9. All right, great.
Richard and Peter have voted in favour as well.
Fantastic.
Okay, that seems to be pretty unanimous in favour of accepting the annual report. Thank you very much. Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is really the meat of the discussion, which is the business plan. So, Alfred, you're going to share your screen, aren't you, to go through the business plan? This is what as founding members, and I should have explained this when I started. So, in the setup phase, which is what we had been on up in until today, the board is comprised of the founding members, of which there are 7 in total, and 5 are represented today. So we had apologies from Lisa and from Andres. So we've got 5 board founding members. So as founding members, we retire today, and a new board has to be elected. And so that is the 3rd resolution. So I didn't explain that earlier on. So this business plan that you see in front of you is the proposal from the founding members that the membership is invited to adopt for 2023, 2024. So I'm going through the first few slides, and then it will be Alfred and then Loic to talk through their bits. Next slide, please, Alfred.
Can I just confirm everyone can see the slides? Yeah.
Oh. Right. Yeah. So we're having a bit of a problem in the room here, in that the TV is showing the old slides and not the new ones for some reason. Why would that be? But you can see now.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we're all good now. Brilliant. So the model, if you like, that Crystalisr has been trying to develop is I can summarize it this way: as a bridge between us, those of us in the room who are running small businesses, and those anchor institutions who need to engage with us for the purpose of developing the local economy in community wealth building. But that engagement isn't sufficient unless we are able to apply some sort of methodology towards community wealth building. So we're trying to represent in this slide in green what that methodology might be. Next slide, please. So just to put some context into the business plan, there's a tremendous amount that we are having to contend with. A simple step analysis, which is social, technological, environmental, and political, would show that we have got nothing but change going on. we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis, which is causing a great deal of inequality, and that in turn has got knock-on effects as far as the politics are concerned. We've got a technological revolution taking place with artificial intelligence, posing tremendous challenges as well as tremendous opportunities. Post-pandemic, we've got a very interesting, I would say, different work pattern. Britain seems to be amongst the most sort of heavily adopting of work from home culture amongst our competitors. And this is the governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, saying only literally a day and a half ago that amongst all of this, Britain's productivity is low. So that's just some of the challenges that we've got to face if we're going to build community wealth against all of these headwinds. Next slide, please. Policymakers, however, are responding to those challenges, and so the context in which we're working has got to be cognizant of what the policy environment is like. We borrow a lot of our methodology from the Centre for Local Economic Strategies, CLES, and they published a couple of weeks ago an update on how, I suppose, those anchor institutions could view how they could map their policy objectives onto that policy context that I've just been through. So they proposed 4 baskets, if you like, of activity around further development of the infrastructure required to do business. A basket which is about really being conscious in collecting data to understand change, how impactful they're being. Local government likes to measure growth in terms of gross value added, GVA. However, CLES is saying, by all means, think about the survival rates of small businesses, and in larger businesses as well. Amongst all of this, you've got people going, getting out of work, losing their jobs, losing their contracts, without an understanding of what's happening. We're not really going to be able to follow. Health inequalities and other indicators of deprivation. This data analytics need to be brought in by stakeholders into how they configure their plans for change. And they're already doing a lot around skills and employment. I mean, we in South London are blessed to have some very good skills providers, and there is a local skills improvement plan in place at the moment. But we as small businesses need to understand what they're doing for us, and what opportunities we can we might be enabled to take up. Next slide, please. This is news. Thank you, Al, for pointing this out. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is if you like, taking over from the previous funding model, which was the Big South London £6.5 million, is offering opportunities to to local government around the country to implement some of this policy. So the Greater Manchester, which has got its own anchor network, as I was saying before, has in mind what they call their inclusive ownership platform. This is, community wealth building by another name. And they have just literally launched a tender for £365,000 to implement that. So this kind of thing is going to be taking place around the country, you would expect, funded by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and in the future through central government finance. Next slide, please. Just wanted to say something about the changing alphabet soup, if you like, around community wealth building. Some authorities are not using the expression. Some are. So Islington, is a community wealth building borough, and they use that expression all the time. Southwark is too, but they decided that economic well-being was something that was more understandable to people. Greater Manchester, I've just mentioned, they talk about inclusive ownership. In London, tends to talk about good growth, and some others talk about economic growth and development. That was Kingston, but it boils down to the same thing: is how can we develop the local economy, and how can stakeholders help small businesses to be sustainable, and to grow employment in the locality. Next slide, please. So we're sticking with community wealth building. We're sticking with the 5 pillars that we were furnished with by the Centre for Local Economic Strategies as the basis for the business planning going forward. There's people like Ben, Achilles, Saffron, who've been with Crystalisr from the very beginning, will know that a lot of our engagement and the sort of the discussion has been about how can a platform help small businesses. So what we've tried to do is systematize this into and cross-refer it to the 5 pillars of community wealth building. So, for example, the training resources that could be used to accelerate small businesses. Ideally, they could and should be worker-owned businesses, but the same resources we as Crystalisr we're planning to deploy by developing the platform going forward in 2024. So what kind of resources would that be? Well, it would be leveraging all of those business support offerings, of which there are 30 at least, signposting to the membership what opportunities are out there, where people can be bidding for funding, making sure that our working groups, which we've got industry working groups in different industries, are sort of appraised of the opportunities that obtain within that industry sector, and leveraging the potential for our members to engage in partnership working. So that's under pillar 1, which is building businesses which have got shared ownership. This is one of the goals in community wealth building, and it was one of the objectives of the founders of what is now Crystalisr, was to try to accelerate our success as small businesses. Next slide, please. So the second pillar of community wealth building, and of great importance, and in terms of how policymakers view local economic development, I would say this is number 1. It's bigger than all the work that's going on in progressive procurement, because without the cash to commission small businesses to do things, it's impossible to be developing the local economy. There has to be a buyer. There need to be clients. We all need clients as small businesses. We can buy and sell from each other up to a point. But for example, the green economy, people talk about that with great sort of gusto. We're not retrofitting as many homes as we're supposed to be doing. We're not building the new homes. We're not, setting out and fulfilling plans for the regeneration of the high street. And so we've got to deliberately apply, our skills to dig out, cash where it is available. So, for example, there's money in local government pension funds. Local government pension funds are being asked by the ministry responsible for local government to report on how they're going to develop impact investing. And it's up to us to make sure that the voice of community wealth building is heard within that conversation. So that was mentioned on the bottom left. As a service offering, though, we can facilitate these kinds of transactions that might be seen as local investments through pilot projects that we're running. We can say to funders, these are the kinds of things that are going to deliver on your policy objectives, whether it's a green economy or it's better adult social care, employment of young people. All of those policy objectives require capital. So this finance pillar, is key. So you can see in this slide the concrete things that we're aiming to do. So all of the slides are concrete aims and objectives. So we're going to be doing awareness raising. So we're planning a workshop on the finance pillar to take place in December. We might actually end up rescheduling that for January, but that's probably the next workshop that we're going to do. We're concretely going to apply the limited funding that we have, and as Loic says, we've got we should have £5,000 or £6,000, and we can put some of that into setting up the community wealth fund and growing that fund through the economic activity that takes place on the platform, and then using the existence of the fund to crowd in the private capital that we need to invest in, for example, university spin-outs, in closing the gaps in the supply chain. Like you might have, for example, a really good opportunity for small businesses that's being commissioned by one of the big anchor institutions, and they're struggling to find local businesses to fulfill that. Well, we can oil the wheels as a platform to try to enable some of our partners to be involved in putting in a bid. So that these are intentional parts of our business plan for 2024. So I'm hoping I'm getting that across. This isn't theory. Next slide, please. Creating a just labour market is the third of the 5 pillars of community wealth building, according to the Centre for Local Economic Strategies and other governments that are implementing community wealth building, like the Scottish Government, Greater Manchester, etc. Justice, for people, for small businesses who are trying to get their goods and services sold, is a level playing field. It's access to affordable, insurance, affordable workspace, making sure that they're given due consideration in contracting, which also sort of spills over into the next pillar, which is about progressive procurement. There are labour markets that are not, if you like, in zone for procurement, which is why they're featured here in pillar number 3. Think about photographers, think about musicians, creatives. We've got an example, we've got a sort of representative from the creative sector with Arga here today. I've been working with, seeing what we could do for Merton. People are emerging from university and college, or transitioning into occupations, which bring goods and services to market, but we just don't have a shop window to buy from these people, or it's inadequate. So as a society, with all of those challenges that we've been facing, we've got to enable people to be able to make a living, despite these challenges, and create those and use the platform, if you like, to bring the membership together to create those marketplaces. So this is a conscious effort that has to be done. People are trying to do that through networking, through the sort of the business groups that they belong to, through decentralized autonomous organizations, if you're into Web3. But this has got to spill out into jobs. People have got to be able to earn a living from this. And so that's our task collectively, is to help that labour market to work in terms of the local economy here in South London. Next slide, please. No, so this is probably the most mature of all the pillars across all of the local authorities that are introducing community wealth building, because I suppose it's the clearest, using particularly public sector funds, but although not exclusively public sector funds, to buy local. So there is the London Anchor Institutions Network, which has been in existence for a year and a half, nearly 2 years now. They've had several meetings, engagement events. They have set out their stall that they're deliberately, as buyers, going to be spending 20% of their budget, or up to 30 in the case of the GLA, buying from businesses based in London. However, we as Crystalisr, we've got to try to internalize this for South London. We've got to challenge our anchor institutions to to keep coming to the table with offers that are tailor-made for local economic development. They've promised to do this. Every time you talk to an anchor institution, they have it in their business planning, if you like, to fulfill their civic mission. And we've just got to hold them to account as both a membership organization and a pressure group, really. Provide some hard data through spend analysis. This is one of the service offerings. Use the technology that's available, tracker intelligence. We were planning to purchase a subscription with tracker intelligence, which is run by a company called BID, which will enable us to produce spend analysis reports to show to the anchor institutions, in terms of a baseline study of what they're spending and how that's changing over time. So we, as a service provider, can do that. And that is a service offering for which we can expect to be paid. A lot of coordination and brokerage work needs to be done to help the anchor institutions to fulfill their civic mission in progressive procurement. What does that mean? It means helping people like Ardeo, which is a company headed by Peter Kuramapu, who's sitting here on my left, who's come up with the most amazing idea, which is to help the public sector to introduce, real change and real integration into their into the integrated care system, using technology, enabled by technology, and enabled by the fantastic providers we got in the healthcare sector. So the Care Concierge plan, or the Care Concierge pilot project, is going to need a lot of support from all of the stakeholders to make that work. And we, Ardeo is one of our members, and we're advocating for them to get that support, and making sure that we get a seat at the table in all these discussions about how Southwest London introduces change in the healthcare sector. I mean, that's just one pilot project of a number of other pilot projects that that members are coming up with. The more members we get, the more opportunities there'll be for partnership working, and the more support people like Peter will be able to get in fulfilling his pilot projects. There's a lot more to talk about in relation to progressive procurement. I just want to say one more thing, and that is that unfortunately, I don't think he's made it on the call, but Gregory is going to be here, who's working with Wandsworth Council. They're doing a lot under Pillar 4 in Wandsworth. Wandsworth is not in the South London Partnership, but it is very much a laboratory of change that we've got our eyes on, just to see how Supply Wandsworth is set up and managed sort of going forward. So I'm sure this time next year we'll have a lot to report from that. Next slide, please. A lot of the aforementioned touches upon land and property, whether it's the regeneration of the high street or helping businesses to step up and supply into the public sector. Particularly, I'm thinking of things like facilities management, but anything where you've got a workforce that you're looking after, you're going to need at least periodically to have access to affordable land and property. if you're in a market that, that is manufacturing, or delivers through client, face-to-face client work, for example, in the healthcare sector. But then I can think of many other examples, be it creative industries, retail. You're going to need property, and this is a real headache in terms of local economic development. So Wilko closed their stores, unable to get a buyer. They cited that property costs are one of the main reasons why they went out of business. So all of those people have been thrown out of work because of this issue, that we haven't dealt adequately with land and property challenges. But the anchor institutions, generally speaking, are sitting on a lot of property assets. And so as a membership organization, we can go back to them and say, look, we as small businesses, we've got potentially viable solutions, but we need access to your land, or we need you to at least help us out with affordable workspace, at least in the interim, while we get find our feet. Saffron is here, and aren't you, Saffron? So you've just opened a sort of a creative enterprise hub in Croydon, which helps with this with the land and property issue. All of the anchor institutions, though, have got land and property. I'm thinking particularly of universities and colleges, of course. Who knew that Nescott, which is the Northeast Surrey College of Technology, it's got a farm. So if you want to do something around food manufacture, get in touch with Nescott. But we should develop an asset map of all the assets that we actually do have, in South London, that we can leverage. And this helps in the process of community wealth building. It's one of the fundamental pillars. So that's me. Now I'm going to hand over to our research director, and former founding member, because we're all former founding members now, now that we've reached the AGM stage, Alfred Widman, to take over. Alfred, over to you.
Thank you, David. It's always inspiring going through those 5 pillars, because it's just such a hotbed of opportunity, hearing that. And every time I read through it again, I feel excited by all of the opportunity that there is there. So I'd like to talk about Crystalisr and where to start, really. So community wealth building, systems thinking, an integrated approach. So we're taking an integrated approach because community wealth building, I consider a systems thinking, a way of solving a problem, a systems thinking way of solving the problem. It's looking at various interventions, which are these 5 pillars, which are influencing the system. They're high leverage points in influencing the current economic system to generate more community wealth, rather than concentrate wealth within the hands of the few, which is kind of how a profit and loss statement is structured, especially if you are forced to maximize shareholder profits. That's kind of what you're locked into. So these are systems thinking ways of interventions, really. And we're really taking this on as far as the design of the membership and the design of the platform, and also the way we're going to go about solving the problems, basically. So systems thinking, there's a book called Systems Thinking for Social Change. There's a whole load of information there around that, which we'll be referring to. One of the things here is the iceberg model. So you've got the surface level things that are happening, the events, the trends, but further beneath the water, we've got things like pressures, policies, power dynamics, perceptions, purpose. All of these, these purpose things, these are the things that you and I, that we all as a society take for granted every day, that we don't question and we act upon. And this is really what is called upon us, upon every one of us, to really make the system change that's required to avoid absolute catastrophe ecologically in this world. So it's called upon us to dig deep in order to really change the systems that we are working in, and also to facilitate safe spaces where these kind of conversations can be held and can be had. So it's going to be using a lot of action research, and the community practice will be also a space where these conversations will be had and feed back into the cooperative through sociocratic feedback loops. And we've got a lot of work to develop this more and integrate the right feedback systems into the co-op's governance. But that's where we are. And platform economics, we can see platforms are taking over the world. We've got Amazon, we've got Apple, etc., and they're all shareholder-driven platforms, and and they're doing very well. And what they do is they skim off a negligible percent through transactions that they have facilitated. We want to leverage the same power. So the marketplace between anchor institutions and SMEs within South London, and equally the B2B marketplace between SMEs and SMEs. If the anchor institutions take too long to respond, we'll just do it ourselves, and we'll go B2B within the SME community and to the local population as well. There's still plenty of action that we can take to lead this. Everyone there, this can be led from all angles, is what I'm saying here, and it's being led from all angles through the local spend movement as well. So we're also going to be looking at emerging technologies. In particular, we've leveraged no-code solutions within our tech stack. So we're using Airtable, Make, and Softer for our front and back end. It's extremely powerful. We can iterate very quickly. We can provide solutions really quickly. It's not a tall ask or a big ask to create a simple tendering platform for contracts that are below 25k, which currently do not show up in the main tender portals, and there isn't a formal procedure for doing this. So this is one possible feature which on the platform you can upvote as a member, as a guest member, and we'll be feeding in various different product ideas, and you can feed in product ideas on the platform yourself. Another thing that's also pretty much ready to go, because I've got another project going on that uses the same thing, is a tender writing, AI-based tender writing service that we'd be able to have. It's kind of like a hybrid between pure AI and a human moderated. So it'd be like a human moderated AI chat, which will help generate better tender writing tenders for people to get them started off. And there are lots of other ideas which will populate the features section and direct you to later on down the line. So yeah, that's it. So we're leveraging systems thinking within the platform design, and that's what I'm going to turn to now. But first, let's zoom out, because it helps drive the point home quite a lot. I mean, let's zoom out a lot, like a heck of a lot. There she is, this little planet surrounded by darkness, this little blue planet, and yet the dominant economic model that that is functioning within on this earth sees that planet over there as an externality. It's a second thought. It's not even in there, and that is what our economy is based on. And this is thanks to Kate Rayworth's work in Donut Economics. I did have a reference there, so I'll just shout that one out. So we want to go from that to this, which is a nested. Well, I mean, we're just taking this philosophy on that we're looking at nested systems here. And this is one of the big changes that we've got to internalize ourselves. And this is not just policy work. This is internal work for every person, everyone here. It's personal, guys. It's also personal is one of the main points. It's not just business, personal too. So here you've got the planet Earth, solar energy coming in. You've got society within that, and then you've got an economy, not just households and businesses, but you've got households, you've got the market, you've got the commons, you've got the state, and you've got financial flows within that. Because currently, finance and financialization is really running the show, which is, having locked us in. It's a dire situation. We're systemically locked in to catastrophe. So it's urgent. This is urgent, guys. So there she is once again. Let's just remember this, and we're gonna come in every time a bit closer to something that looks a little bit more like home. And I'd just like to iterate again, just to emphasize again, we're coming in more down to the local, and this is a big thing about what community wealth building is about. It's about becoming place-based, and the dominant economic model has forgotten about place. It is displaced our place, so we're coming back to place, and we can drill in even further to more human scales, which is potentially, which is a I think one of the big shifts in approach involved in community wealth building as well is to bring things local and bring business local and transact more locally. So even within here, if it can be even more local down to the street level, the better. And also same goes for technology. High tech is great, but low tech is resilient as well. Resilient to all sorts of the big changes that are happening in our world. So onto our model, we've got anchor institutions. We've got publicly funded ones and private ones, and we've got our SMEs. And the various different sectors all within South London Partnership. So the Crystalisr Co-op, we will be gaining support through our members, through membership fees and other support like peer-to-peer help, work in kind, and whatever other support ways we can gain, as well as obviously funding to Crystalisr. And with that, we will be facilitating community wealth building activities. And this is just to illustrate really how we're leveraging systems thinking, because we are setting up a flywheel or a positive feedback loop. So the more community wealth building that Crystalisr facilitates, and then also the other thing is the SME B2B and anchor to SME transactions that Crystalisr would facilitate, and also help, and that would also help build Crystalisr's productive capacity, which is owned and governed by the members, the anchor institutions and SMEs. So this is also embodying community wealth building. It's a distributed ownership. another feedback loop, and that's a real strategic objective is to build up as many positive feedback loops that we can that will further continue community wealth building. So the more community wealth building that happens, then that's helping out anchor institutions and SMEs in a myriad of ways. It means SMEs can pay more rates, and SMEs are going to be employing more people, to name a few of these factors. So these are all positive things. And then that feeds back into Crystalisr, because the anchor institutions and SMEs will be able to support Crystalisr more. And there we go, we've got more coming in here. And the transactions that are being facilitated through Crystalisr is also feeding into Crystalisr. So we're all in the same boat. We're not relying on grants and the next election for funding. It is direct democracy in action. And and then there we have the Community Wealth Fund. So this is like second or third round, I guess, because we're going to start building it small. It all starts small, and we've got to get the flywheel started, and we're going to demonstrate it. It doesn't matter what size it is. So there we are. That's the model, and that is that's it. Over to Loic.
Thanks, Alfred. Always inspirational. So I must apologize. I've got a cold, so sometimes I cough. So if you can't hear me clearly, just shout. So far, Crystalisr has been 7 members, 7 founders, really, and a few guest members. So I think one of our challenges to start with is that we're small. And therefore, the first thing that all members should do is invite more members, and that, so that we can grow the membership of Crystalisr as a co-op. And then existing members, if you're guest members, become paying members, and that will help. We've gone through the business plan and the 5 pillars, and we've worked to try and translate that into financial flows. So I'm going to give you the big items, and then I'll drill into the current year P&L, which is fairly accurate, and then the next 3 years, because we think the business plan as you see it today is a multi-year delivery system. It's not something we can do all next year, because we're too small to be able to do that. So we need to grow at the same time. But essentially, the plan is to action this over the next 3 years, maybe 5, depending how fast we grow. So that's the approach we've taken. And being a finance guy, I'm always a bit cautious. So we're trying to, maybe be a bit more prudent than necessary, but it's not a bad thing financially. So that's the context of it. Now, in terms of financials, revenue streams. So what we call revenue streams is the sources of all revenue as a co-op, as a membership organization. So obviously, we've identified the following are the main ones: the membership fees. So if you're a member, you pay a fee. Courses and workshop fees. So as we organize courses and workshops, people will pay fees to attend those, and therefore will generate revenue. Members will get discounts probably. Consultancy and bespoke services. So the data analysis and the work that we're considering doing, rely on us paying access to data, and then using that data to provide reports, consultancy reports and bespoke reports that we could sell to anchor institutions or businesses. And that would generate revenues for us. Platform matching fees, once we've grown a bit and the platform is fully functional and we are we are engaging SMEs to SMEs or SMEs with anchor institutions. We'll take, in every successful tender, we'll take a fee for that, either on a flat fee or percentage of the value of the tender. So the platform, what we call platform matching fees. And then of course we'll seize every opportunity to access grants where available to us, and of course we always welcome donations to the cooperative from existing members and non-members, the general public. So those are 6 main revenue streams that we're considering over the next few years. Next. In terms of cost centers, the way we've done the financials is to cover all the 5 pillars. Basically, we're trying to take action across all 5 pillars to try and progress things. So the costs related are also related to all those 5 pillars. But essentially they are not so complex. You've got platform technology costs, which are the costs of running the platform, the website. Cost of services sold, which are the delivery of the services, like the consultancy services, the bespoke, the matching services, and all that. So that's direct. That's cost of service sold, which are called direct delivery costs, which actually, as we grow the membership, should be and hopefully will be delivered by members of the co-op, not by third parties. So that's money that, although we're spending with our own members. And then overheads, which, would include website fixed cost, insurance fixed cost, marketing costs, subscription fixed costs, and any accountancy and legal costs as well. And then unfortunately, taxes. If we make profits, the taxman likes his cut. Luckily, the taxes for a small organization are quite okay. They're not too bad. It's 19% up to £50,000 of turnover. So that's the big items in terms of revenue streams and cost. Next, please, Alfred. So now in terms of forecast, as I said, because we ran from 1st April to 31st of March, the position you see is at the 31st of March of every year. So the 2023-24 year is at the 31st of March 24, and so on. So next year is at the 31st of March 25, and so on. Okay, so it runs into 27 because at the end of the third year it's March 27. So this year, let's take this current year, we've delivered the big integrate and we've invoiced 7,500. So we expect that to come through. And then in pillar 1, we had a few donations as well, and therefore the total expected revenue for this year at March will be about just under £8,000. Then the next 3 years are forecast, so you've got nice run numbers, but clearly it will be subject to change. Usually forecasters always say that as soon as you put the forecast down, it's already wrong, but it's fine. It's just to show pathways of where we think we should be going and how fast we'll get there. So from a financial perspective, what we're saying next year, we'll focus on pillar 1, 3, and 4, which are shared ownership, just labor market, and progressive procurement. And we'll generate revenue focusing on those. And then the year after next, we'll increase those 3 pillars, and we'll start working on pillar 2 and 5. Not 5. And then finally, the third year, we'll cover all pillars, and we'll try and engage all the actions on the pillars. And as I said, it's because we're small and there's no way realistically you can deliver all 5 pillars in 1 year. So we will have to, if we do 3 next year, that'll be extremely good. We might do only 2 or 1, but let's be optimistic and let's engage members to help contribute their time and to help us deliver those. So basically, the revenue ramps up, year on year quite nicely, and we'll every year. So next year, the same AGM, we'll review this one, and we'll look at the new one. It will be radically different, I expect, and we'll add another year. So it'll become a rolling forecast. You know, every year we'll add a new year. We'll review the past year. We'll add a new year. So that's the concept of it. So it's a visibility over 3 years. Next, in terms of cost, same principles. The 23-24 costs are some of them are already sunk, some of them are not. For instance, the cost of service, the £2,500 is the data access cost. So it's not spent yet, but we think it might make sense to do it this year, in this financial year, because we can afford it, and then use that data to generate revenue next financial year. We've had a few website costs, insurance, subscriptions, and accountancy and legal is outstanding as well. And then, you know, we expect to pay a bit of tax, so the total cost will be at 6.5 effectively. But then going forward, you know, same principles. You've got technical costs, the platform costs. You've got cost of delivering the services, which will ramp up as you grow those services. And then at some point, possibly next year, as soon as possibly as next year, we might have 1 or 2 part-time staff members in the co-op that would help specifically with website updates and maintenance and things like that. And then we might add more over time. You know, and the rest is pretty, you know, we think we might start doing a bit of marketing, B2B marketing next year as well, and then ramp that up over time. Subscriptions are pretty fixed. Accountancy and legal are pretty fixed, although there may be a bit of inflation over time as well. So that gives you a picture of all costs. We expect costs to evolve as well as we grow and as we deliver those revenue stream as well. Next. So, you know, net income for this year, this current year, which ends in March 24, we expect our net profit to be about just under £1,300. Next year, it will dip a bit because we'll deliver a bit more, and then it'll go back up. And all the money so far is being transferred to reserves, and then we'll use it to fund community wealth building activities beyond the activities of the co-op as well. So, you know, it's, as I said, it's a forecast, so it's already wrong, but it's fine. It gives you pathways and an ambition and a way forward. And we think it's, you know, it's fairly reasonable. We don't think it's too aggressive. Next year is certainly achievable. And beyond that, you know, we need to grow the membership and grow the engagement with both SMEs and anchor institutions to be able to deliver everything anyway. I think that's it. Next. Is there a next one? No. There you go. Any questions? Good. Well, I think it's back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Luke. Yeah, I mean, there can be questions on any aspect of the planning. I guess I'd like to, because I mean, people who you know, are coming to this perhaps for the first time, maybe didn't have a chance to read the document that we posted online. I'd be interested to see how it comes across. Does it come across as being something that has just got too much in it, or something that is not specific enough, or something that is that doesn't resonate with you? This is what we need to know, I suppose, at this stage. I mean, we'll be able, as a community, we'll be able to adapt going forward, but we wanted to try to take into account the conversations that we've been part of up until now. Any feedback, you guys?
Yeah.
From either of you?
I read the document earlier.
Yeah.
Find it, the business plan, and it was interesting because unlike the Chambers of Commerce, I asked the question in February, March, you know, what's the difference between this and the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah.
And you did a lot of work with me to try and explain what the difference was. We spent a good month chatting about it.
Yeah.
And this business plan makes a lot more sense. I think I have got a couple of comments, and maybe it's not the right time to do it now because I only read it literally before I came.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to articulate anything about it. But what came across was that if you want to call it a platform, or whether you want to call it a business, or whether you want to call it a co-op, there seems to be a very highbrow approach to what Crystalisr can deliver. And the majority of it was really what I would consider consulting based. So, for example, the bids and tenders, and taking a percentage of the bids and tenders and helping organisations with those bids and tenders. And I just on the first look, I was slightly confused as to whether the organisation would spend its time at a very high level, or whether it would be on the ground with the people that need to be employed and to generate that. Is community wealth building something that is done from above at a very high level, and then we hope that the littler or smaller organisations will pick up the business and get on with it? Or is there going to be an involvement between Crystalisr at the high level and with what goes on at the low level? So when we did the big integrate activity, and I was on that one of the cohorts, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't think I would enjoy it. I thought I'd be on the call, one call for half an hour, and then I wouldn't join again. But I stayed the course,
Yeah.
and I fully enjoyed it. I think what that left me with a feeling of going back to college and university, but then there was a cliff edge to it, and what happens next was a big question. Crystalisr sort of steps in at that point, and it almost holds your hand, but doesn't really, because it hasn't got to that stage yet. But I think that initial service that we got from the conversations and the conferences were great. Crystalisr looks like it would then step in to start to enact things that the consultants can do and help handholding. But then I feel like there's still a bit of a cliff edge as to what's going to happen with the businesses themselves. Because I think every small business, and they'd be lying if they were saying anything different, every small business aspires to become a big business. So an SME wants to become a big company. It doesn't have in its psyche to say, I'm only going to employ 3 people and I'm going to throw business away after that. It wants to grow, it wants to expand, and it wants to go past that. So I think for me personally, I would like to see more of what it would be doing with those businesses, really, at the lower level rather than the top level. Consultancy, I've done it for God knows how long, 40 years.
Mm.
And 40 years. And there are consultants are 2 a penny. They come and they go. But I think the difference between a consultant who comes and goes are those people actually look after the small businesses and help them, handhold them along the way. And that's what I feel is still a bit of a gap for me until
Okay, yeah. Can I speak into that? Because I think for me, the issue is that I'm trying to remember the name of the triangle. There's a pyramid triangle that talks about the benefits, and it's the benefits upwards towards the emotional benefits or whatever. And at the moment, it just
hierarchy
feels
of need.
Yeah, hierarchy of need. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. The concern for me is that as an SME owner, in terms of the allocation of my time. And I'll apologise immediately. I've never given any time to Crystalisr, not really, not since the very early days. And the reason is simply because in terms of the allocation of my time, it's always about the trade-off between how is my time spent best in order to get a return on my time. And therefore, right now, this feels very ethereal, very early stage. It feels like it. So at the moment, particularly if what you're doing is you're chasing membership, that's part of your revenue stream. It just feels like it's not couched in terms of what both in terms of KPIs. There should be KPIs about what is and the KPI shouldn't be what revenue you're going to raise for yourself, how you're going to stabilize the community structure. The KPI should be how many SMEs, what amount of money are you going to or project value are you going to convert for SMEs year on year and year. And that's actually because it should be all about this, because this fails if it's not focused on the end users' needs and how you're achieving and what you're achieving for them, because that's where the focus should be in terms of KPIs and all the rest of it. So it still feels very, dare I say it, a little bit inward looking and not outward looking enough in terms of the goal setting and the intentions. It's very ethereal. It's very sort of what's the word? I think you said it's almost quite academic in its structure, but it's not actually telling me as an SME what am I going to get and when am I going to get it. And until you can say that, I don't see how you're going to generate membership.
Ben, around the point about project value, could you say a bit more about that? How do you think Crystalisr could work with an SME on the implementation of particular projects with a KPI in mind? What sort of KPI have you got in mind?
Well, I mean, classically, if, for example, as an SME, Crystalisr was a service that, as you said, taking a very simple solution, simple opportunity, seemingly simple, but certainly in terms of the framework that you've presented, you giving me access to government procurement or local government procurement or whatever, so that I can sell my services to local government, then if you sell me, if you manage to get me X thousands of pounds worth of business through that procurement pathway, then that to me is a reason. In other words, it would justify my membership fee, because it's actually a return on that investment. At the moment, you're not actually defining for the SMEs what that return on investment could be, or creating a pathway in terms of your goals and your intentions from a KPI perspective. The return on investment for the SMEs. What are you looking to achieve and when?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, what we can do, I think, going forward is we can try to map the growth of the SMEs that participate in supply readiness training, for example, to say, well, they attended this training and this is the success that they've had. I think their success or failure in the bidding process isn't something that Crystalisr itself is accountable for. I mean, we're accountable for good, I suppose, for good interventions, for good training, and for making sure that there are sufficient. But
nevertheless, what other, unless it's let's say through feedback in terms of statements from the participants saying this was really great training, it's really helped me a lot, which is qualitative response, or quantitative response in terms of, as you just said, how has their success rate increased? KPIs have to be quantitative, so that's a difficult one for you to do, I have to be honest. But certainly, sort of feedback. Then, yeah.
Yeah, but the two things you mentioned are very doable. I mean, I think certainly the training should create feedback loops through the assessments that are done, the evaluations, that are done on each training intervention, and I think the data, because we're very much short of data, and this is one of the criticisms of community world-building in general, is that it's not transparent when it comes to how successful this policy has been, whether it's in Preston or Greater Manchester or anywhere else. How is it moving the dial? So I think that the data and the research, I mean, Alfred mentioned several times, conducting action research as we go forward. We have to do that, otherwise we'll be back asking the same question year after year. So conducting the action research is critical,
But the point that I mean, I say again, I don't want to belabor the point, but the critical point here is that if you want to generate members, you need to be able to articulate what the return on their investment is.
Can I just?
Yeah, that makes sense. Please.
Yeah, I just want to say I asked the question earlier, and you followed me on, Beth, by re-articulating it and making it more of an academic, describing the organisation as more academic. But the truth is that I've actually done incredibly well so far out of Crystalisr. And, David single-handedly has, brought me in by chance. I clicked on a link on LinkedIn because I'd never seen anything about Kingston on LinkedIn and the Globe. So I thought I'd click on it. Ended up on the Big Integrate. I think it's the Big Integrate seminars. And then David then made an impression on me. And I still couldn't understand what Crystalisr was months after. I've got to admit, I kept getting confused. But what he did do was go through the process. And the process was that I started off in an academic setting, which I didn't think I needed, but I thoroughly enjoyed, learned a lot, and then I waited for something to happen. And that something to happen was David. And David then started to, encourage me about what I came to him with as care concierge, for example, and he put the feet on the ground and then started to do what I think you're beginning to speak about, which is networking. How can I get my project on the ground in London and where can it go to? And he started to introduce me to the ICB and the ICS, for example. I can't remember what the chap's name was now. It was at the conference the other week.
Well, the ICL one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it
Andy Carr? There was Andy Carr there.
Yeah. And his boss.
And his boss. And then there's the place in Twickenham or Richmond. Can't remember his name either now. Forgive me. I can't do names. But essentially what David was doing was bringing together the right people in local government and introducing me to those and setting up emails to introduce me to those. And as a result of that, I didn't have to do all of that work myself, not knowing anybody in South London, but having a vision as to how I wanted to get it into play. And David did do all of that. He didn't have to, but he did do it. So I feel like Crystalisr has plugged the gap after the academic part of it, which was Big Integrate, which was very, very necessary, I think. But he then has stepped in and done what Crystalisr, I think, does really, really well, embodied through David. And I don't know whether that will be multiple people like David, me included at some point, where we will help network people's SMEs that are coming to the organisation and network them through the right departments and the right people. Small businesses are very, very poor at knowing the right people. They aspire to have the best computer systems or the best cleaning systems, etc., but they can't get to the right people, and those people are generally bigger than they are. The economy at an SME level will fail unless there is new business coming in, and that's generally from bigger organizations. So that's what David has done for me. And as a result of that, we are going for pitches. We are going for big grants. I don't think they're small grants, are they, David? I mean, you know about them.
Yeah, but it varies, doesn't it? I mean, but you talk about the Innovate grant.
Yeah, the Innovate grants, for example. And then there's the portal that you introduced me to, which I haven't pulled the trigger on yet. And there are several opportunities flying through there that you introduced me to. The procurement portals for council.
Yeah.
But the long and short of it is we're now into at least 2 bids, which are going to be roughly £270,000 to us as an SME. And then other bids, which the Care Concierge one, which we're hoping to go for, which will be anything up to £2.2 million. And that was spread amongst South London. I think is that.
But I agree with you. But the problem here is that actually a lot of what you've now, I guess because I work in the Innovates industry, a lot of what you've just spoken about, I personally already know about and I already engage with in a lot of ways. And that's the issue here, is that there are an awful lot of opportunities, whether it's Open London, whether it's the big that's just happened. There's a whole load of different, if you like, platforms or accelerators, incubators, all the rest of it, that are all vying for the attention of the SMEs. What I'm saying is that in order for Crystalisr to crystallize its own offering clearly, in other words, so that SMEs can make a decision, where am I going to invest my time and effort, with which organizations, with which platforms am I going to engage? It needs to make that very clear about what the return on investment, what the likely benefits are. And that's where I'm saying is, it's just, from what I've just seen, it isn't. It's very unclear, and so yeah, if I were coming to it completely fresh, I would go, I have no idea what this is. I have no idea what the opportunity is. I don't know how long it will take me to return my investment. And the reality is that Crystalisr is a startup. It's probably got a 3-year pathway towards actually being able to offer something, both in terms of data back that tells them what the return on investment would be from predecessors going before them and all the rest of it. But nevertheless, that needs to be the pathway, as far as I can see, is towards something that is manifestly clear as to what the return on investment is for any SME engaging with it.
Ben, I think the problem, I guess, is that we can't put in terms of the old financialized system what we're trying to achieve through the systems thinking that Alfred has just outlined. So this is a completely different way of thinking, which is more place-based. So you tend to come into the two systems are opposite to each other, and they can come into conflict.
But the problem is, every SME has staff they've got to pay, and they've got mortgages to pay, all the rest of it, and therefore they need to focus their time on anything that gets them a return on the investment.
Yeah, I mean,
that's just the reality.
Absolutely. But the point about, or the opportunity, if you like, within community wealth building, is that you've got place-based systems that can be of benefit to some, not all, small businesses. So there might be a business, for example, that's entering a global market. There are no buyers from within its local place-based ecosystem for that particular product. Community wealth building has got only a tangential effect on them. But for someone like Peter, who's got a solution to a problem that the place is actually facing, in other words, how does Southwest London implement the integrated care system, then there's good overlap, and a place-based response is appropriate. So I think there will be, if you like, relatively more or relatively less opportunity for participation amongst 57,000 businesses that there are in South London in the Crystalisr platform. It won't be for everybody.
But Ben, to your point, all your feedback is very valid. We are a startup. We are very young. It's only 7 members right now, so we can't do it all. And we need members like you to be more proactive with Crystalisr and engaging more with us. And your feedback is a great start, because you're right. Members' benefit is one of the key areas we need to develop to be able to engage more members. So what's in it for you, effectively? And what we wanted to do today in the business plan is try and plant the seeds on everybody's mind that we need to change the way we think in terms of community wealth and how the economy is run and all these things. So it does feel a bit theoretical and ethereal and academic, I agree. But it's necessary, because that's the foundation of what we're trying to achieve, 3-10 years down the line. So your feedback is excellent, because you're absolutely right. We need to engage SMEs, and to be able to engage SMEs in the current economic system, we need to show them potential returns and what's in it for them. But the flip side of that, because we're a membership organization, we need you as a member to help us doing that and give a bit of your time. That's what I do. I run my own little business. I'm a founding member of Crystalisr. For the past 2 years, I've been doing about 10 to 15% of my time to Crystalisr, free, pro bono. I'm not expecting to be ever paid for it. But because we're a startup, we need existing members and people that engage with us to be more proactive, to help us deliver membership benefits and so on. So it's a kind of chicken and egg situation, in all startups. We need to raise funds. We need more people. We need all the necessary ingredients to be able to make it a success. But your point about being clearer what the benefits are for the members, it's definitely a hugely important point, because you're absolutely right. Unless we can demonstrate that, and I'm glad that we've been able to work with some of you to be able to show that. But it's important that we can show benefits to members, and members benefit from our actions. So it's not, I don't think it's not a top-down approach. It's definitely a bottom-up. We're all members. We're all participating. We should all work together, to try and further the purpose of Crystalisr.
So one question I'd have is, I think what Ben's saying is very reasonable. Now, I know we offer training and there are various other ways we interact with people already and hope to in the future. So perhaps what we need to be is systematic about getting feedback, not only immediately after, for example, a training course, but over a period of time. And even if that isn't something that immediately translates directly into return on investment, if we get the kind of feedback, especially positive, that we just heard from Peter, then that is very valuable, not just as something to persuade other people, but to learn, because I think it's going to be iterative for us to understand how we offer value. But if you don't do anything now, it's like the general principle of Agile. If you don't produce something along the way, you end up risking producing nothing, especially in terms of anything persuasive for anybody else to join us. So maybe we can't hope to now come back with a sort of cast iron thing that would make Gartner sit up and listen. That's not really our aim anyway. But I think we do need to be systematic about gaining that, and not just immediately after any particular activity.
Thank you, Dominic. Alfred.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's all like has already been said. I'll echo that too. Really, really valid to get some decent member benefits. And well, yeah, we've got the features section in the membership. We'll be doing a round of consultation with anyone who's been involved with us, and you guys can make suggestions of what there is, and we can and we've got suggestions of our own already. There's things we can do as a membership, as a peer-to-peer thing. If we've got social media that we need sharing between us, we can share other people's marketing material through our networks and work as a peer-to-peer organization. We can start using the platform to leverage things like that work as a collective. There's lots of options out there. We've got a bunch of different ideas, and I just invite you to have a look there and share the ideas you have as well. And as a membership organization, we can upvote what's next, and that is really our next task. Really is to get the first one or two most important member benefits delivered to you fine people.
We can add that to the plan. I've noticed that we've gone over time. We've already lost Sarah. We're going to lose a few more unless we progress a bit more. But Saffron, you've been waiting patiently. Do come in.
No, I just wanted to sort of speak to Ben's comments, which I heard loud and clear. I represent an organisation which has been in the borough of Croydon for 40 years and was set up by a group of people much like David and the team at Crystalisr, and now employs 9 people and subcontractors and so on and so forth, and receives considerable grants. So these movements that are started with great intent and with great energy behind them can go on to leave great legacy. And I think that's David's intention, that this is something that will be here long way after he is, and the energy that he puts behind it. And I'm empowered by him and the energy he puts behind it, but he will obviously need others to jump on board and have that same energy. But yeah, it's a CSR, it's a trustee, it's a volunteer, whatever you want to call it. It's giving something back, hoping that change happens in the future. So yeah, just wanted to voice that.
Lovely, thank you very much for the Saffron. So we've now moved to the point where we've got to vote on the adoption of the business plan, notwithstanding the comments that have been made. The plan as it is, iterative, as it is the one that the founding members are putting forward for adoption for 2023-24, and we need to put it to the vote. So if you are in favor of adopting this business plan, please raise your hand. And again, Alfred, if you could please note the numbers of hands raised. You can always raise the virtual hand. Thank you. You done, Alfred? Yep. Amazing. Thank you very much. So the business plan is adopted, and it'll be adopted very much with those the comments that have been received will be taken on board and reacted to. The last item on the agenda requiring a vote is the adoption of the board. So the proposal from the founding members is that me, Alfred, and Loic, who really, I guess, were the three founding members who were able to find the most time to participate. Although I want to give a vote of thanks to Steve, to Lisa, to Dominic, and to Andres, who couldn't be with us today, for the input that they have done, which has been very valuable at various times. But we need some continuity, and we can only have in a board that shouldn't really be bigger than about 9 people, according to the rules that were adopted through the FCA. We can't really have more than about 3 SME members. We also need anchor institution members, and we need to have representation from the other 2 stakeholder groups, which would be employees, were we to get to the stage where we can employ people, and investors, if we to get to the stage where we do a fundraise through issuing community shares. Those community share purchasers are entitled to become members as well, and they, in their turn, are entitled to be represented on the board. So the proposal we're putting to you, dear participants, today is that that me, Alfred, and Loic should be board members, but that as board members, we need to populate the other board members as soon as possible. We can continue with those 3 to start with, but we need to get to 8 or 9 as soon as we possibly can. A lot of that depends upon whether or not the anchors choose to go ahead with community wealth building through setting up an anchor network. But that's our proposal. We'd like to put that to the vote as well. So if you're in favor of that proposal, please put your hand up. If you reject it, then keep your hand down. Okay, can we put our hands down, Alfred?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so that's adopted as well. Of course, not a very satisfactory situation. We'd like to have, or I have had by now, anchor institution members. This is something we've got to progress with urgently, next year, and it's part of the business plan. The very last item on the agenda is second to last, sorry, is any other business. Anybody is entitled to raise a point. You don't have to be a member. It can be a question from the floor. Actually, everybody here is a member. Is there any other business that you would wish to be aired in the annual general meeting before we close? No, nothing in the room. Nope. Okay. The date of the next Crystalisr annual general meeting is Thursday, the 24th of October, 2024, which, it could be polling day. I mean, we don't know, do we? If it is, we might have to move it. I want to close by thanking everyone for their participation. It's been really, really useful. I mean, it's something that was an obligation, but at the same time, it was a pleasure. And thank you, everybody, for participating and for being so patient in the fact that we've gone over time. Apologise for that. And we look forward to another year of amazing growth. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you next time.
That's very well.
Bye.
Well done, David. See you later.
Cheers then.
Bye all. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Cheers.